phone down.
Put it down like I
put my
told
phone
you.
down.
Put it down.
I can put it down.
Now.
You're not going to sue me.
Put it down.
This traffic stop of a black man in New Braunfels last year is the subject of a new racial profiling lawsuit in Texas. The officer said he pulled over the driver because his license plate was dirty. The driver says he was yet another victim of racial profiling. With race and policing under scrutiny, information about every traffic stop must be reported to the state.
Texas law enforcement have to collect and analyze the race and gender of each driver pulled over. So KXAN investigator Jody Barr analyzed years of racial profiling data.
He's uncovered hundreds of police and sheriff's departments failed to report those details as required by law, and the state has not held them accountable.
209, go ahead.
It's going to be a dirty plate.
1 year ago,
I'm behind them lights and siren.
New Braunfels police officer Caleb Meyer stopped this car after he said he couldn't read the license plate as they drove along I-35. 2 minutes after the red and blue lights turned on, the driver stopped. Clarence Crawford later told the officer he pulled over when it was safe.
Put your hands on the wheel. Put your hands on the wheel. Put your hands on the wheel. Both of them. Put the phone down. What is your problem?
Please don't sue me, officer. Please don't sue me.
What is your problem, dude?
Please don't sue me. Please, please, please.
Stop.
You. You don't
Get
talk
out.
to me like that, bro.
Get out. Get on your face.
Eligible on the class Charles BL.
I'm on the ground.
All the way. Hands
I'm on
in
the
front.
ground.
2.5 minutes into the encounter,
What the you want me to do?
Stop. Lay out. Face down.
the first of 2 stun gun hits. The officer eventually got Crawford into cuffs and charged him with evading and interfering with public duties. The city says Officer Meyer was retrained after the stop, and then he continued patrolling in New Braunfels.
It was initially viewed as a training issue until he was counseled and provided additional training on traffic stops, use of enforcement.
The city said what happened to Crawford was unacceptable. Months later, the officer resigned. 2 weeks ago, that driver filed a federal civil rights lawsuit alleging he was a victim of excessive force and unreasonable search and seizure, the result of racial profiling. Crawford argued the profiling happened when the officer pulled up alongside him at a stoplight nearly 5 minutes before he followed him down the interstate and stopped him. New Braunfels police and all others in Texas are required by state law to file racial profiling reports each and every year. We discovered the state has no racial profiling data from New Braunfels for any traffic stop in all of 2017. It's not been uncommon across Texas over the years. Why would a law enforcement agency not take the time to do this?
To be honest with you, it is something that is not forgivable.
Dr. Alex Del Carmen is one of the state's leading racial profiling data experts. Just last year, he urged the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement to make sweeping race and gender additions to what law enforcement agencies report annually.
Data is just basically in this case, it's just who the police officer stopped in a macro level analysis, meaning, as a police department, how many African Americans were stopped, how many Hispanics were stopped, how many whites were stopped. But in reality, that information is halfway complete.
The state's racial profiling law demands agencies do more than simply collect data. They're also supposed to audit their own numbers to make sure they're reporting accurate data. Then, Texas law requires they perform a comparative analysis of the race, gender, and ethnicity of the people stopped, digging into how those race numbers compare to the population in their area. The reason for that, lawmakers wanted departments to spot racial profiling indicators. Find out why it's happening. Our investigation found the state does not have a single comparative analysis on record from any Texas law enforcement agency in the last 10 years. To not do that, what message are you sending to the people of Texas?
The data without an analysis is pretty much useless.
Failure to report is a violation of state law and today could come with a penalty up to $5,000. But our investigation found in the past 4 years, more than 250 agencies did not submit a report, and there was no action against any of them by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
If they're not even filing the reports, if they're not gathering the data and letting the state agency look at that data and analyze that data to see what they're actually reading, then it's useless.
Have all voted? Have all voted.
Former State Representative Linda Harper Brown wrote the 2009 law giving TCOLE the exclusive authority to punish Texas sheriffs and police chiefs for failing to file the reports.
You have to know these numbers and facts to be able to run a good agency and to do what is expected of you to the state and to the citizens of the state, because it is law. And for a law enforcement agency to not follow the law is really embarrassing.
Get out of the car!
And then you
I
gonna
will
stun
light
me?
you up. Get out!
Wow.
Then came the 2015 traffic stop that led lawmakers to once again toughen the state's racial profiling law.
For a failure to signal. Yep, for a failure to signal.
A Houston area trooper stopped Sandra Bland for failing to signal a turn. The Bland Act requires law enforcement to collect even more race and ethnicity data. It also increased fines for failing to report data from $1,000 to $5,000. Still, years later, the state has not collected a single racial profiling analysis. Kim Vickers leads TCOLE. He's also responsible for making sure Texas law enforcement agencies are filing those reports.
I have not had a single case brought to me where my staff says this chief or this chief administrator intentionally did not send in this report.
Not until our interview did TCOLE say it realized it was supposed to collect the comparative analysis, something the law required of TCOLE for more than a decade.
If we can find a way to make that doable, then we should do that.
Is it a fair characterization to say that TCOLE may have dealt with these agencies with too soft a glove in making sure that they fully comply with this racial profiling reporting?
No, I won't say that we're being too soft. I won't say that at all. What I say is we're being fair. We need to be more diligent on that. You have really made me look at that. We need to be more diligent on that. We'll do that.
Well, the day after our interview with the TCOLE director, he sent me an email. That same email also went to every law enforcement agency in Texas, telling those sheriffs and police chiefs they must submit proof that they performed a comparative analysis on their racial profiling data for 2020. That's due March 1st. But still, no one's addressed those years of unreported data and analysis. From the Capitol, Jody Barr, KXAN investigates.
Here's something else you should know. The kind of data reporting Texas requires does not identify profiling among individual officers. But we learned it's not like that in every state. Racial profiling reports in North Carolina, Maryland, California, and Illinois show every single traffic stop and a unique identifier for the officer who performed the stop. Identifying officers in Texas, though, in any way in traffic stop data is illegal. One of the nation's top experts in this area tells us Texas should adopt reporting laws like the ones in those other states if it truly wants to stop racial profiling.
The data that are presented by the state of Texas are completely unhelpful. You can't reach any conclusions about the very purpose for which the data was collected. So it's useless.
The Texas Commission on Law Enforcement is currently under review by the Sunset Advisory Commission. It's a committee of lawmakers that analyzes the effectiveness of state agencies. The Sunset Commission chairman told Jody, "What we found is a broken system." He'll tell you about a possible fix when this investigation continues tomorrow night at 10. Online now, explore our interactive data feature showing how widespread these problems are in Texas. Just search for this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com.